Why does every conversation about equality still sound like a war? And what if, without realizing it, feminism itself has changed sides? Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial books of the last decade. Joanna Williams' Women vs. Feminism: Why We All Need Liberating from the Gender Wars. It's a bold claim that modern feminism has drifted away from empowerment and into perpetual victimhood, that in trying to protect women, we may have forgotten how to trust their strength. So let's ask the uncomfortable questions. Has feminism gone too far, or not far enough? Are men and women still allies, or have we turned equality into conflict? And what does true liberation really look like in a world that claims we already have it? Women versus feminism. Are we fighting the wrong war? There's never been a better time to be a woman. At least, that's what the numbers tell us. Girls outperform boys in school. More women than men graduate from university. They're living longer, healthier lives, and are increasingly represented in business, politics, and public life. Yet paradoxically, the dominant story of our age tells us women are still trapped, harassed, and held down. So which is true? In Women vs. Feminism: Why We All Need Liberating from the Gender Wars, academic and writer Joanna Williams poses an uncomfortable question. If equality has advanced so far, why does modern feminism sound angrier than ever? The paradox of progress. Williams begins not with ideology, but with data. She reminds us that girls' academic achievement has risen sharply across the West. They're more likely than boys to attend university and less likely to drop out. She notes that in Britain, for example, women now make up the majority of medical and law students. In many sectors, they out-earn men before their 30s. So if women have won so much ground, why do so many still feel oppressed? Is feminism measuring success by the wrong yardstick, or has it simply refused to declare victory? Williams argues that feminism once thrived on optimism, the belief that women could do anything, but somewhere along the line, she says, it turned inward, choosing grievance over growth. Feminism has become less about what women can achieve and more about what men do wrong. She worries this mindset creates fragility rather than freedom. Work pay and the motherhood trade-off. Let's talk about the gender pay gap, a phrase that sparks outrage and political campaigns. Williams doesn't deny its existence, but she insists we look beyond the headline figure. She dissects how the gap often reflects different choices: the kinds of degrees women study, the sectors they enter, and the years they take out for raising children. She calls it the motherhood trade-off, not a penalty imposed by men, but a negotiation between professional ambition and family life, one many women consciously make. When a woman chooses flexibility over overtime, is that oppression? Or is that freedom exercised differently? Williams warns that turning every statistical difference into proof of discrimination risks erasing women's own decision-making power. To her, true equality means recognizing agency, not demanding identical outcomes. From liberation to regulation. But the sharpest edge of Williams's argument cuts through culture. She says that somewhere between the #MeToo movement and online outrage, feminism has drifted from liberation to regulation. In her words, yesterday's feminism wanted to break down barriers. Today's feminism builds new rules. She points to the rise of safe space policies on university campuses, once the very places that champion free thought. Students, she argues, now fear disagreement as harm. And in public life, she sees feminism morphing into what she calls a moral police force. Campaigns against sexist jokes or flirtatious comments, she warns, blur the line between genuine abuse and everyday interaction. Is this vigilance protecting women or infantilizing them? At what point does defending women's safety start to limit their strength? Williams suggests that empowerment cannot coexist with perpetual protection. If freedom means the right to speak, flirt, fail, and offend, then women need the same resilience expected of men. The Gender Wars. Williams titles her central chapter The Gender Wars. And it's not a metaphor she uses lightly. She sees a new cultural divide, not between progressives and conservatives, but between the sexes themselves. The feminist narrative, she argues, too often casts men as villains, inherently privileged, suspect, even toxic. We have moved from the politics of equality to the politics of resentment. In workplaces, this plays out as anxiety, men afraid to mentor women, to joke, even to be friendly. In relationships, it manifests as mistrust. Have we replaced patriarchy with paranoia? Are men and women allies in progress, or combatants in a perpetual Cold War? Williams warns that this adversarial framing harms both sides. Men feel demonized, women discouraged from seeing them as partners, and that, she says, threatens the very fabric of social trust. Identity politics and the fracturing of feminism. Then Williams turns to the newest fault line, identity politics. Where second-wave feminism sought universality, women as a shared category, modern activism, she argues, splinters into sub-identities. White feminism, queer feminism, intersectional feminism, trans-inclusive or trans-exclusive feminism. Each insists on difference. Each claims its own moral high ground. Williams isn't hostile to diversity, but she warns that constant fragmentation erodes common cause. If feminism is about inclusion, she asks, why does it so often end in exclusion? And there's another tension, the meaning of woman itself. With the rise of gender self-identification, she notes, even defining womanhood has become contested. Can a movement defend women's rights if it can no longer define who women are? For Williams, this crisis of definition reveals something deeper, a movement unsure of its own purpose in a post-equality world. Do we still need feminism? By the book's conclusion, Williams poses the question that echoes through every chapter. Do we still need feminism? Her answer isn't simple. Yes, where women lack freedom. In parts of the world where education, safety, or bodily autonomy are still denied, feminism remains vital. But in Western societies, she says, feminism must evolve or risk irrelevance. It must stop defining women through victimhood and start celebrating competence. What if equality has already been won, and now it's time to learn how to live with it? Williams calls for a post-victim feminism, one that sees men not as enemies but as equals, one that prizes ambition, agency, and resilience over grievance and fear. We need to liberate feminism from the idea that women are weak, she writes, and women from the idea that feminism is their only voice. The backlash and the balance. Of course, her argument sparked backlash. Critics accuse Williams of downplaying violence against women, of ignoring systemic bias, of celebrating privilege as progress. They remind us that pay gaps still exist, that harassment remains pervasive, that many women, especially working class or minority women, live far from the equality she describes. Are these critiques proof that Williams is wrong, or proof that feminism has become unable to hear dissent? Even her detractors admit she raises difficult truths, that sometimes the movement's tone, angry, punitive, moralistic, alienates the very people it hopes to persuade, and that somewhere between liberation and outrage, feminism may have lost its way. Toward a new liberation. Williams doesn't ask women to abandon feminism, only to rethink it, to rediscover its radical optimism. To remember that equality was never about sameness, but about freedom. The freedom to speak, to choose, to disagree. So maybe the real question isn't, do we still need feminism? Maybe it's, what kind of feminism do we need now? A feminism that trusts women's strength rather than assuming their fragility. A feminism that invites men in, instead of shutting them out. A feminism confident enough to laugh, to risk offense, to lead without apology. Because perhaps the greatest liberation of all is freedom from the story that we're still not free.